Today I will line up decimals based on their place values so I can order them, and I'll know I have it when I can order my decimals from least to greatest or greatest to least. So just like when I am comparing decimals, I need to make sure that I have equivalent place values. So a couple years ago I got to visit the Google headquarters, and this picture's a little blurry, but I got to ride around on these bikes that they have all around the Google campus. I asked them the different requirements, and they said that it took 9/10 of a can of a paint of yellow paint for the bike, 11/100ths of a can of the paint for green paint, and only 8/1000ths of a can of paint for the little basket part. So I wanted to put these in order from least to greatest. So my first step, what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite the numbers, and I am going to make sure I line up my place values and my decimal points. So I have my 9/10ths, my 11/100ths, and my 8/1000ths. So just like when we were doing the comparing comparing decimals, we need to make sure that we have equivalent amount of place values. So I see my 8/1000ths has 3 place values, so I need to add in 1 0 here, and 1 here, and 1 here. And now this is going to help me put everything in order nice and neat. So I am looking, which one is my smallest? Well, I see here my ones place is all equivalent, and now I see that my tenths place, that's a 9, that's a 1, and that's a 0. So that is, obviously the last one is going to be the smallest. So my 8/100ths is less. Then when I'm looking, I see I have a 1 versus a 9, and that is going to give me my 11/100ths, and then finally my 9/10ths is last. Even though it looked like initially that my 11 is larger than my 9, it's not, because this is like having 900 pieces, this is like 110 pieces, and this is like 8 pieces of my next whole number. So I spent some time riding the bikes around, and these were my 4 trials, and I'd like you to put these times in order from greatest to least. Hopefully you've had enough time to do that, so let's line these up. I am going to rewrite these, so I have 7 1/10, 7 87/1000ths, 5 9/10ths, and 7 66/100ths. Need to go add in some placeholder zeros, and I am done with that. Now I need to start looking what is my largest, or I can do least and then just make sure I put them in order. Now when I'm looking at my whole numbers here, my ones place, I see that there's a 5, so I know that is going to be my smallest, or even without looking at the decimals. So that's going to be my last one. The rest of them have a 7 in the ones place, and now I look to the next one, I see that I have a 1 in the tens place, a 0 in the tens place, and then a 6 in the tens place. So because this one has a 0 in the tens place, that is my next smallest. And so my 7 87/1000ths is my next smallest. Now I'm looking, I see I'm comparing a 1 and a 6, so my 7 1/10ths is less. And then finally my biggest one is 7 66/100ths. Again, I can look at each place value, or I can look at how many pieces of each one. The big thing here is make sure you look at your whole numbers first, because if you looked at just the decimals, it would appear that the 5 9/10ths is biggest, but that doesn't matter because that's 2 whole numbers less. So in our Bring Back to School problem, I have made a mistake in putting the decimals in order from least to greatest. I would like for you to find it and fix it and show your work, and I will see you in the morning.